Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to welcome you to a session that promises to be very engaging and thought-provoking, and it's on trade facilitation and digitalization for global competitiveness. Before we commence, I would like to introduce the panelists and set the stage for the discussion. Our invited speakers cut across the trade value chain, and we want to welcome first from the Nigeria-Customs Service, Webb Fontaine, and the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment. So first, I will start with the representative of the Nigeria Customs Service, representing Colonel Hamid Ali, the Controller General for Nigeria Customs Service, represented by Suleiman Chiroma, Acting Controller, Tariff and Trade Department, Customs Headquarters, Abuja. DC Controller Suleiman Chiroma is a native of Potiskum, Yobe State. He is an alumnus of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi. He has worked in various capacities at the Nigeria Customs. He's a recipient of the Presidential Promotion Award for dedication to duty and interception of arms at the Controller General Promotion Award for dedication to duty and PAAR sustenance. Please welcome DC Chiroma. The second participant is Okwe Babalola, who is the Managing Director of Webb Fontaine Nigeria Limited, a leading provider of solutions for trade facilitation powered by artificial intelligence. Okwe has been instrumental in the solutions being implemented by various government agencies. He's an accountant and a project manager with a background in banking and experience across the United Kingdom, United States, and across the African continent, with institutions such as Google, Cadbury, EcoBank Group, and so on. He holds a bachelor's degree in accounting, a postgraduate diploma in management, and is a UK chartered management accountant. Please welcome Okwe Babalola. I guess in the meantime, I will just go straight into the discussion. Now, the question is, why is trade facilitation critical for today's discussion? Trade facilitation, as we all know, remains a bedrock for driving bilateral, regional, and global trade growth, and will bring the welcome boost to any economy. It covers the entire ecosystem of trade, comprising border procedures from the point of using modern technology to facilitate electronic exchange of data about a shipment, to the simplification of trade documents, and to the modernization of customs administration for better efficiency. Now, analysts in various capacities are of the opinion that trade facilitation can help reduce costs, the cost of trade, by as much as 14 to 16% in developing countries like Nigeria. And it will also provide the platform to address some of the current challenges and barriers that we see in trade, particularly in areas such as the high cost of transport, the poor roads and infrastructure, the bureaucracy, and the cumbersome formalities in the customs operations, the low automation that we see, and the absence of single platform connecting all the agencies. Now, there is no gainsaying that improving import procedures and adoption of digital technologies are essential elements of trade facilitation. To achieve its objective, this has to be done to drive efficiency and to increase global competitiveness. Now, the Nigeria single window was deployed to increase efficiency, with a view to reducing trade processing time and also the costs for trade for importers as well as exporters. However, the single window alone will not deliver its desired objective if the key barriers to trade are still not addressed, especially finding lasting solutions to things like the gridlocks at the borders. For instance, export processes takes as much as 2 to 3 weeks or even more compared to only 4 days in Kenya. It also said that Nigeria requires as much as 14 documents for imports compared to only 5 in countries like Rwanda. So also the need for improvement in customs and logistics cannot be overemphasized. Now, with that as a backdrop, I would like to ask our panelists to give us their brief opening remarks regarding this topic, starting with DC Chiroma, then Okwe Babalola. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibemi. May I recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister, Federal Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, President of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce, the other distinguished speakers, the organizers, and all participants of this program. The Nigeria Customs Service is delighted to be a participant in this PALI or Expo, and wishes to state that this kind of forum or Expo helps to bring in the technical know-how on how to improve trade and trade relations globally. In this case, particularly between Britain and Nigeria, which has been our traditional trading partner over a long period of time. May I also state here that the Nigeria Customs Service has recognized Britain alongside other countries like the Europe in general and the US as being having the lowest profile of risk in terms of the risk assessment. As such, to encourage trade and increase the volume of trade is something that the service will do anything about to see to its fruition. And as I speak, I'm DC Suleiman Chiroma. On behalf of the Controller General of Customs, we wish this Expo a successful deliberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we can hear from the opening remarks as well from Okwe Babalola.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for having us at this event. I do want to recognize the presence of all the distinguished guests as well, and we are very honored to be a part of this. Trade facilitation and digitization is something that's going to be at the forefront of development and advancement for many years to come. Right now, it's a very hot topic because of realignments that are going on. You've got the realignment in Europe because of Brexit and all the attendant challenges and opportunities that that's going to bring. And also you've got the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has started gradually, and really it's going to change the lives of millions of people across the African continent. With this, again, there are challenges, but there are also lots of opportunities, both for nations, for different companies, and for institutions such as chambers of commerce all around the world, just making sure that all of these work properly. We have been privileged to work with the Nigeria Customs Service for several years, and we've seen a lot of the developments of what have happened in the trade environment in Nigeria. And the service has really been at the forefront of many things that are going on the African continent. We may get an opportunity to go into some of these things as the panel discussion continues. I think rather than be intimidated by the changes that are going to happen, what we need to be able to do is to embrace them and to look at where the opportunities lie, both for Nigeria and for Nigerians, and to see how it's going to improve the lives of our people. We've made a lot of strides, and I hope that this forum is going to be an opportunity where people can, all the viewers can recognize the strides that have been made and the future and the hope of what is ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that opening remarks. I think picking up from some of the things you have said, I would like you to share with us how technology has improved trade facilitation in Nigeria. Because you've been working closely with the government and the different agencies in many capacities around this. What have you seen? How has technology improved facilitation so far? Thank you.
That's me, I presume?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm just picking up from some of your last comments.
Okay, now there's a small caveat. Webfontaine and Customs work so closely together that we're probably going to say some of the same things over the course of the panel. But I'll go ahead and start. And if there are any gaps, maybe Acting Controller Chirma can fill in with some of those. The government of Nigeria, like all governments around the world, have embraced e-government as the way forward. The Central Bank of Nigeria has digitized several of their processes and things. The ports, I'm sure everybody's been hearing about the e-call-up system that's being promoted and that's going to start to decongest all the Apapa gridlock and everything that's going on in that sector. So all of the agencies of government in Nigeria are trying their best to meet that as far as the trade area is concerned. The Ministry of Finance has recently launched the Import Duty Exemption Certificate, which is one of the initiatives there. What that does is that instead of getting waivers, a letter that you take from one desk to another over several weeks and everything, it's now an electronic certificate that can be passed through. So it is something that is already started. For our work with the Nigeria Customs Service, well, NCS has a one-stop shop for the entire for the trade process. Somebody can apply on the customs platform, on the Nigerian trade platform for, first of all, for the Form M for foreign exchange, then the SON certificates, NAFDAC certificates, everything can be applied for on the one platform. And I think that's something that has been really a big development right there. Other agencies are joining, and processes that often took weeks, sometimes maybe even months, starting to take days instead, and minutes and days. And I think most people can actually see the difference with that.
Okay, thank you for that. You mentioned the government agencies connecting, and I want to ask, that seemed to be the direction we have been seeing. Is there the capacity for that platform to accommodate us seeing business to businesses, like bringing on board the logistics communities onto the platform, as we have seen happen in some other markets? In some of the Asian markets, we've seen that kind of integration. What are the recommendations for this to happen? Is that the direction that you're looking at, or that the government is looking at, working closely with you? We
will see that, and in some other countries, we're doing some element of business to business. In Nigeria, we work primarily with the government and with the government agencies, and until the other sectors of the government, the other sectors of the economy taking that up, when they do so, we'll be very glad to join. Yes, and actually, I believe that DC Jiroma would like to add to some of those comments from the customs point of view.
Yes, please. And I was just going to say, depending on your answer for us, we should have his view on his perspective to what is being done to maximize the full potentials of that platform across agencies. DC Jiroma, can please give us your view on what we have discussed so far and what is being done to maximize the potentials?
Thank you so much. I would like to say that having Mr. Babalola is a pleasant surprise on this platform. And the history of Nigeria Customs Service cannot be written without the web front-end. Likewise, the landmark achievements observed from Nigeria Customs Service would not have been possible without the contribution of the web front-end. For starters, they provide the digital backbone of the service and the modernization engine of the service. And as such, without the web front-end and the automation they bring in, so many achievements on the side of trade facilitation, duty collection, detection of other crimes will not have been possible. They have helped in reducing the costs and the time of doing business with the Nigeria Customs Service in terms of clearance and documentation. I believe the digitization of Nigeria Customs Service is the key word for the future and is the backbone upon which future success is based. That's what I want to add. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, for your addition. Okay, Babalola, could you please expand, our knowledge in terms of what you've seen in other markets? Cite some examples for us on the successes in using trade technology beyond what we're currently seeing in Nigeria. What have you seen in other markets? Can you share a bit of that with us?
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much, CC Chiruma, for your very kind words about Web Fontaine service and cooperation. In Nigeria, I will be bold to say that we actually apply many more things than we do in most of our other markets, because Nigeria is such a huge market. And as our customs officers often go to other countries, they come back and they tell us that the challenges that the Nigeria Customs Service faces is several times more than many other customs service in several other countries. So the solutions, therefore, need to be that much more advanced and comprehensive. But we do different things and have recorded different successes. What we would like to replicate in Nigeria if we have an opportunity. In Cote d'Ivoire, for example, with artificial intelligence, the customs service there, with the help of Web Fontaine, has been able to use technology, artificial intelligence, and machine learning technology to identify 80% of the high-risk consignments. This is very significant because it means instead of having to check every single container, you can map algorithms between maybe where the consignment is coming from, the agent, the type of the description, several other things, and the machine will tell you, the system will tell you, flag this. And they've been able to pick from that 80% of high-risk consignments. It has been a game changer in that market. In Benin Republic, they deployed a system, they asked for and deployed a system whereby from several days before the ship's berth, the customs service already knows the ships that are coming in and the various various cargoes, the manifest on those ships. So you can see them, they have a screen. You can just have a look at it and be able to track and monitor those things. So those are just some of the areas we'll be able to do. We've won several awards in countries, most recently Ethiopia. We've been very successful in Bahrain and some other places. Some of the countries too, our services are mainly ports management and single window, which is somewhat more comprehensive than what we're doing in Nigeria, in that more agencies are included. The ports management, right from exchanging data, communicating with the various agencies, payments, billing, and all the associated logistics. We've had huge successes with that in several other markets as well, in Bahrain, in Nepal, and in other markets too. So those are just some of the successes that we've seen. And again, as I said, we would like opportunities to continue to implement those and to improve our services in Nigeria.
Thank you for that contribution. I want to pick from one of the things you said. You said there are a lot of challenges that are facing customs when you compare it to other countries. I want you to share a bit of that. You talked about using in other markets, using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do a lot of, some of the things that we're not yet seeing in Nigeria. From your perspective, what are these challenges that you're talking about? And how are these challenges hindering transitioning? And what do you think we need to do to break it? Because it's one thing for us to say, okay, there are challenges, there are things we need to do. What should we be doing to address them in order to accelerate technology adoption for trade?
Thank you very much. I was thinking the question was for Mr. Babalola, but
it was actually for him.
In Nigeria.
You can
in
both.
Nigeria. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
In Nigeria, we have the peculiarity of having a large population. And this goes to say that the volume of our imports and probably export will be much more bigger than other African countries, and sometimes several of them combined together. And so it's a challenge to contend with having to deal with such a volume of cargo steadily coming in through our land borders, airports, and seaports all at the same time. Knowing fully well at the background, we have a lot of criminal activities taking place in the country, like banditry, like insurgency, and certain other uncalled for activities that may want to use this medium to bring in uncustomed goods. Now, this portion is a very big challenge when you compare to smaller countries which might sit back and wait for cargoes to come from time to time. The second aspect, again, is that we have a high profile of tendency or propensity to falsify documentation. Sorry to say that a lot of times our risk management system has picked up the need to either challenge or adjust declarations that have been made. And from our profile, from our records, the amount of duty recovered has shown that declarations made by importers or sometimes exporters are proofs that there are a lot of things that were done wrongly in Nigeria. Compare that to other advanced nations, for example, the US or whatever, whereby there is very, very low level of, high level of compliance. So compliance is another thing. Here again, we also have high volume of smuggling taking place. From the records of our seizures and detentions, you will see the attempts being made to bring in things illegally, even through our seaports or even through our airports. And such kind of things require digital, if possible, automated approach, of which probably we are going to go into it later in the discussion of this panel, like the provision of non-intrusive mechanisms and equipments. And I believe with this kind of situation, it makes Nigeria a very challenging environment to contend with. Thank you very much. And if I may add too, if you check our seaports, especially in Lagos, you can see the congestion alone is also a headache for customs, whereby the goods that have been cleared have probably not exited, and there are certain goods that are coming in. So something has to be found, a way around it, whereby the system will have to run smoothly in order to clear for the clearance of cargo. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Babalola, if you will add your comments as well, please.
Yes, just very quickly. So just very quickly.
Before you go on, I want us to be able to highlight the challenges as well as the things that we think should be done to address them.
Okay.
Because the whole essence of us having this discussion.
Thank you. You know, a lot of what the Deputy Controller said is true. Those are the challenges, and the first stage of it has been the customs officers identifying those challenges. And as the challenges get identified, then the solutions are procured. So once the challenges are identified, then the solutions therefore become identified. It's as a result of that, closing those loopholes and dealing with some of those situations, that customs revenue has risen incredibly over several years to the record of over 1.5 trillion naira last year alone. And we expect it to go higher as the customs officers at the various stations continue to identify and preempt those situations that come up through the risk management systems that the Deputy Controller stated. 12 million people is one of the world's leading importers of rice, of used cars, of used clothes. They cannot absorb those things. It's very obviously simply a conduit for further smuggling into Nigeria. And some drastic action was taken, which affected many people adversely, which it was well recognized, but it was necessary because those are the unique challenges that Nigeria faces. And sometimes unique and drastic problems require drastic solutions. As we open up into the continental free trade area, we expect that that many of those are going to be rationalized and agreements will have to come so that we can deal with those things.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. DC Chiroma, there's a point that has just been highlighted regarding how we took some measures against neighboring, the trade flows coming in from neighboring countries. Do you think that there are some lessons or takeaways from that? Because just like you said, this affected many organizations and many people, in spite of the benefits also from the angle of revenue for the government, as well as other direction towards trade. In your view, what are the lessons or the takeaways that you would want to point out regarding that action?
Yeah, thank you very much. The action has again pointed out the need for the right thing to be done. Just like with what Mr. Babalola pointed out, a neighboring country, for example, importing what we obviously know is more than what the country can be able to contain, means that the excess amount of their importation is bound for Nigeria. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if the right channels and the right procedure is done. There is always what we call the transit ports. And goods that are meant for Niger Republic, for example, that lands in Nigeria and will transit to Niger Republic have to follow a certain procedure that is internationally accepted. And if this procedure is not being followed, that means it was a deliberate attempt to subvert Nigeria and its economy. So the lesson we have to learn is that we need to abide by the international accepted procedures, whereby a cargo that comes to, for example, a neighboring country that is meant for Nigeria must necessarily have to come to Nigeria as it is. Instead of a container coming, it will be opened and transloaded into trailers and trucks and shipped on top of these trucks to Nigerian borders. You will know that something is afish. What is expected is the whole container will be delivered sealed and untouched. So we have tolerated this for so long until when the drastic measure was taken and the need for this procedure to be implemented has been signed and agreed upon. And we hope that henceforth the right courts will be applied and the processes and procedures will be implemented. And that is the take away from the what we call the border closure. And this applies not only to Nigeria, but to all other countries in Africa and within the West African sub-region. I believe it's a lesson for all.
Thank you very much for that. I think what you have said would have cleared the air for quite a number of people, because there's been questions on why that situation and why that direction. I have some questions that have come in. To DC Chiroma, it says, why must we continue to use only Lagos port?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I believe it is wrong if we continue to have to use only Lagos ports. I believe we have to find a way whereby we have to find a way whereby we utilize our other options. And the main source of our problem in the Lagos ports, the congestion, a lot of uncalled for behaviors and acts that were taking place, is the non-utilization of our available and possible options, like the use of Warri ports, the use of Calabar ports, the adequate use of our inland dry ports, and the use of our various facilities which customs have put in place. Maybe we may talk about it later, to try and decongest the Lagos ports. So if somebody would ask, doesn't go to Warri port, for example, some of the reasons are: one, the freight cost is different. Some importers prefer that their goods should come to Lagos, which is cheaper, than going to Warri, which costs them a little bit more. Other reasons adduced is the shallow nature of the ocean near the Warri port. You can only have a deep ocean terminal where big vessels can visit, dock, and discharge cargo. So this is a situation whereby the federal government has to do something about the waterways, so that such ports which seem to be smaller than the Lagos ports, should be able to be put into use. Other options are the inland ports that are being touted these days and that are being encouraged. You can bring in the cargoes. You can use rail, for example, which is coming in just recently, and transport them to either the eastern part of the country or the northern part of the country, and all customs and clearance procedures will be done there. It doesn't have to be in Lagos. It could be elsewhere. So customs is rightly behind the process and is encouraging the use of other seaports like Calabar, Warri, and other facilities to decongest Lagos. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Okwe-Babalola, you have a few comments in response to that before I introduce Mr. Liu, who has just joined us.
A couple of very quick responses to what DC Chiroma said. First of all, regarding the landlocked countries like Niger and the goods that need to come through, there is technology available for that, and customs is hoping to implement that soon in terms of cargo tracking, geofencing, cargo tracking, which means that somebody is moving a container from one place to another. It will be tracked from the port until the final point of delivery. And if the driver decides to stop at his village to go and see his family, it will be noted as well. That's the first thing. The second thing is that not everything that goes on at the ports is customs. So the issue of which ports are ready and which ports are not is for the port authority to, and customs is ready, Webfontaine is ready to start operating at those ports as soon as the ports themselves are ready for action. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much for that. I think you've also highlighted that a number of all these things, we actually need to take up that discussion with Mr. Liu, and I'm glad that he has just joined us. Some of the things that have been coming out seem to be pointing in the direction of, what government is doing, how the ministry is supporting or facilitating some of these key areas that we've been discussing. So I'll briefly introduce him, and we'll go into some of the questions that have been raised. So Mr. Liu is the Director Trade, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. He is the Director Trade and Investment. He is alumnus of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. He conducted his National Youth Service in Plateau State between 1986 to 1987 before joining the Federal Civil Service in 1987 as Commercial Officer. He rose through the ranks and was promoted to Director of Trade in 2019. Prior to this, he served as Commercial Attaché in the Nigeria Trade Office to the World Trade Organization from 2000 to 2006. In addition to this, he has represented Nigeria in several international trade meetings, and he is a specialist in international trade. Please welcome Mr. Liu to the conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, for joining us.
Thank you very much, and let me apologize for my inability to join the meeting earlier on two reasons. I was in another important national meeting in the ministry. We are receiving the Director General of the WTO this weekend. She is on official visit to Nigeria, and we have to plan for that. And secondly, the internet was not stable, and that's why I couldn't join you earlier. But to join the conversation, I have prepared some talking point or some points on 3 or 4 issues. One is the role of the National Trade Facilitation Committee in terms of promoting trade generally at national, regional, and international level. So just to tell you that the National Trade Facilitation Committee is a committee set up by the Federal Executive Council in 2014 to implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreements. Nigeria signed and ratified the agreement, and we have an obligation to implement the provisions of the agreement. In fact, one of the provisions of the agreement is the establishment of the National Trade Facilitation Committee by all member states of the WTO who signed the agreement. So we have that in place already, and I am the chairman of that committee, and I will just briefly inform you or to inform you about what we have done so far. We have done a lot in terms of implementing the trade facilitation agreement domestically. We have developed a roadmap, and we have even recently reviewed that roadmap to give us a guide or a compass in terms of activities to promote trade facilitation in Nigeria. Then we have also drawn up our schedule of commitments in line with the stipulation of the agreement into category A, B, C. Those things that we are already doing. Those things that we need time, and those things that we need technical assistance and capacity building. And I'm happy to see Mr. Suleiman Chiroma, who is from the Nigeria Customs Service, because the Nigeria Customs Service is the vice chair of the committee. 80% of the agreement is customs. So we work with them on all issues of trade facilitation. We have also done, we are working with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, because they have their own role to play when it comes to implementation. Then monitoring, evaluation, capacity building, and a whole lot of issues. We have developed a monitoring tool to see where we are and where we need to improve. So, and we have established a trade facilitation desk in all the 36 states of the Federation and Abuja, because we cannot implement the agreement only at the national level. We have to work with states and local governments to ensure that trade is facilitated at that level too. So we have a committee in place, and we are working towards improving the local environment when it comes to trade, so that goods and services as well as people can move as freely as possible within the country. Regionally, we are working with ECOWAS. We have a regional trade facilitation committee, and we are synergizing to see that we are all on the same page with sister countries in West Africa when it comes to trade facilitation. So internationally, we have an obligation to ensure that all the commitments that we have from the agreements are implemented. And I'm happy to inform you that as a result of the activities of the committee, our ranking when it comes to ease of doing business has increased considerably. We used to be 169. We moved to 144, and now we are 130. So we are moving, and our target is to ensure that by next year we'll be among the first 100, and maybe we will be one of the best countries when it comes to trade facilitation. Just to make a point, we are working with the ease of doing business initiative, because the two are complementary. So we will continue to work together to ensure that trade is facilitated, the environment is made much better, so that businesses can take place with ease. Secondly, regarding collaboration between the ministry and the private sector is key and central. As you know, for quite some time now, the role of government is to facilitate and to create an enabling environment, while the actual business is done by the private sector. The private sector is supposed to be in the driving seat, and we are working with them. All the umbrella associations, NASIMA, MAN, ANE, NASME, NASME, and all the private sector organizations, including, of course, the civil society. We are working with them when it comes to trade. We have institutional arrangements already put in place. The national by the minister, you have all the state commissioners, members of the private sector in place. Apart from the council, we also have periodic meet with MAN, with NASIMA to discuss policy issues, implementation issues, challenges, so that they can be resolved within the policy space. We have, in the process of policy formulation and implementation, we work together comes to business, so we work together.
Before Mr. Liu joins us again, there are a couple of areas that we want him to touch on. The policy shift that we should expect to see. Yes, a lot of work is going on, but what exactly should we expect to see, and what kind of timeline should we be looking at? Quickly, we are not doing very well with time, but I would like DC Chiroma to give us an overview on the ECustoms Project, which is currently going on. What is happening? What kind of implementation timelines should we be expecting? Thank you.
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you, but if you mind, I would want DC Chiroma to take the question that has been put forward to him before you continue. Thank you, Mr. Liu. DC Chiroma, please
Okay.
go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As you have all heard, the federal government have announced the new provision on e-customs that will soon take off, and is going to start this year in 2021. It's going to have a time frame of 20 years.
Hello?
Hello. It's going to have a time frame of 20 years, and the implementation has been categorized into short-term, medium-term, and long-term planning. Within the first 1 to 3 years, there will be the deployment and the design itself. The first thing to do is to have the whole solution design ready. That means that all plans will be put on paper, and it's going to start this year. It's almost ready. Then the e-clearance and e-port system construction will start and will go on live. Then we are going to have the auxiliary regulatory system construction go on. Hello. Then we are going to have the deployment of non-intrusive inspection system to be constructed and will be implemented. That means we are going to have a lot of scanners. We are going to have a lot of scanners deployed and a lot of non-human contact with the processes of customs that will take place. Then we are going to have a lot of trainings and optimization of the customs personnel to adapt to the new system. In the next 4 to 6 years, there will be system operation.
Hello?
And the maintenance and the training and the training and the maintenance of this equipment.
Hello?
And the new system going on. I'm just trying to summarize everything. Within the year 7 to 9, there will be upgrade of all these systems, and there will be the replacement of any observed defect. There will always be the use of more modern equipment, if any, and within that period, some of those instruments will be replaced. Then within the time of year 10 to 12 years, the system operations and maintenance and training will continue. We also have, in the last I'm skipping the 13 to 15 years because it continues with the upgrade, the maintenance, the replacement, and continuous training. The last 16 to 20 years will be the system operation, the maintenance, and the handing over of the complete system to the customs. So these are the time frames and the limits set to the e-customs, and it has to do with the digitization of all the processes and enhancement of what we already have. Because right now we still have the e-manifest system, e-payment system, we have the NICES 2 running, we have the single goods declaration. All these other processes is expected to be enhanced with the end-to-end automation and paperless regime of the e-customs project that is coming on. In summary, these are what is to be expected within these time frames. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. A few questions I want to take. So that there are questions that are coming on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Okay, so I think DC Chiroma, you may want to give us your views on the question. How far do you think we have gone, in your view, in terms of implementing the free flow of goods and services with respect to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? DC Chiroma, if you can hear me, then I'll subsequently take the views of Mr. Liu on the same topic. But DC Chiroma, you can go ahead, please.
Nigeria Customs Service, the National Office of Trade Negotiations, in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, as well as the National AFTA Committee, the implementation of the, are going around the country to sensitize the stakeholders in what the AFTA is all about and how to participate in it. I learned they were in Nasarawa State as of yesterday, and the next port of call might be Kaduna or something like that. I wasn't so sure of the date, but I'm sure they were in Nasarawa as of yesterday. As you know, certain protocols of the AFTA are not yet in place. Like the most important aspect is the rules of origin, meaning that for goods coming from one country to the other must be identified as coming from a member country of Africa and not somebody bringing it from a third country. And since that protocol has not been fully negotiated and agreed upon, they are still working on it. The Nigeria government, the implementation committee, decided to go on the desensitization, whereby by the time it comes into function, everything would have been ready. So, to say the least, the AFTA has started 1st January 2021, but the operational base is still being put in place. And that, I believe, will be done very soon. And by the time we get all the information from the Office of the Trade Negotiation, we are going to put everything inside our computers, and all the charges and rates of duty that has been agreed upon will roll out. As of now, what we are still operating will be the West African, the ECOWAS tariff regime as of now. I learned from my controller in charge of AFTA and trade facilitation is coming in tomorrow to brief on the update of what is happening. But so far, this is what I know on the topic. Thank you. Mr. Liu can add to that, please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Liu is still in connectivity issues, so I would like to take Mr. Okwe Babalola's comments on that. And I would also want him to tell us the extent of technology deployment for ACTA. What are we looking at? Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, first of all, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, it concerns goods and services and personnel. Nigeria, in terms of services, we're actually not too badly placed. Our banks are the biggest banks, you know, they're everywhere all over Africa. And we definitely have an impact there. But in terms of goods, I think that's what most people are scared of. And just Nigeria's apparently weak manufacturing base. I think we're going to have to deal with that from the manufacturing angle. But in terms of the technology solutions, the Deputy Controller spoke about rules of origin, which identify where the goods are coming from. So a third country cannot come in and sneak goods into one country and export it within the free trade area under some dubious means. That actually, with blockchain technology, those goods can be identified, and the compliance with rules of origin can be identified through that. And then the certificates that are therefore generated from that can be digitized certificates, so that one country, again, as soon as it's done, then you can just send the things around to the countries where the goods are going to. So those are technology solutions right there. And then sometimes also it involves transportation, because there's going to be a lot of need for land transport and cargo tracking. There are electronic means of cargo tracking, which will be very enhanced in terms of that. The private sector is going to play a big part in this. And there are some companies actually that have already started in the private sector to bring this. I know of one company that I can't mention because they're not, they haven't asked me to, but there's a company that does transport logistics based out of Kenya by some very brilliant young Africans. So businesses like that are going to have a huge part to play in that, and they use electronic means for transport logistics. We do expect that technology is going to play a big part in identifying the logistics, the origins, and the digitization of the certificates for the free trade area. And again, we're ready for that. So that's my small contribution.
Hello. By way of addition and update, the certificate for every good to move from one country to another, there must necessarily be a certificate of origin. It is going to, by next week, the African countries are going to meet in Togo. I don't know whether it's only West Africa or Africa, to discuss on this certificate of origin, which has not yet been finalized. Personally, I've seen the letter, and it's going to be next week. We are going to send our representatives, and it's going to be concluded next week by the grace of God. And it's going to be in Togo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our time is far spent. I just want to take the closing remarks from Mr. Okwe Babalola and then from DC Chiroma. Apologies, we were unable to get the contributions from Mr. Ali, who would have loved to touch on the various things as it affects the government in terms of policy.